Well, the main event of this gospel is, of course, Jesus feeding the crowd and multiplying the loaves and fishes. But there's one little small detail that's there. The other gospels tell us that it was a young boy that had the loaves and the fishes, and Jesus says, "Bring him here." And I want to emphasize that because I think it has something to do with the way that we celebrate the Eucharist today. You'll notice that we have people now who bring up the bread and the wine to the altar right after the prayer of the faithful. You know, in the early days of the church, excuse me, in the early days of the church, people brought the bread and the wine. They brought what food they raised. People didn't have money in those days, and so they brought whatever their profession was. And then the deacons would go and take some of the bread and some of the wine, and that's what would be used for Mass. When you stop and think about that, if the people weren't there and they didn't bring anything, there wouldn't be any Eucharist. It's a reminder to us of the dialogue, the conversation that takes place between God and ourselves, between the priest and the people who are gathered here. Without you, we couldn't celebrate the Eucharist. Now, I suppose today we can say we're a little more efficient rather than bringing bread and wine and whatever it is people grow or whatever their occupation was, we use money, and that symbolizes something. And so it's necessary for us to see that our participation is something that is important and that is very symbolic. All of us will not fit on this altar. But yet, reality, that's what has to happen. We are here to offer ourselves in union with Christ. This is an offering. It is a sacrifice. And it's not just the sacrifice of Christ, it is now the sacrifice of the whole body of Christ, united to Christ who is the head. And that is expressed so well in this procession of the bread and the wine that come forward. It's a reminder of our own participation. And that's the important thing for us to remember. It's kind of easy for us to think, well, I'm just here to watch. But no, you're here. You too are offering a sacrifice in union with the priest, in union with the whole church. We are giving something of ourselves. And besides your time and your talent and whatever you contribute, there is, of course, your offerings. And that symbolizes who you are. And so we present ourselves to the Lord. And without presenting ourselves to the Lord, there could not be the sacrifice. Christ is very gracious, and God is very gracious to us. You know, God could have saved us. Jesus could just have appeared in the form of a human being. But God has always chosen us to be partners with him. He's the creator, he's the author, he's the one that starts it, yes. But God is always inviting us to cooperate with him. Stop and think. The Blessed Virgin Mary was chosen by God in order to bring Christ into the world. We are now being chosen in order to bring Christ into the world as well. And so we gather here week after week to offer ourselves and to say, "Here I am, Lord. I am uniting myself to you." And so there is a double procession. Yes, we bring forth the bread and the wine to the altar, but then there's another procession, a procession of us as we come to the altar. The gifts that we presented have now been transformed into the body and blood of Christ. What we have given, Christ is using, just as in the gospel. Without that young lad there to bring the loaves and the fishes, Jesus could not have multiplied because there would have been nothing. And so our participation, our giving of ourselves, is something that is extremely important as well. But there's also something unique in the way that bread and wine were the staple foods of the people of Israel. Stop and think how those are made. To make bread, you need all kinds of grains of wheat that is there. And that wheat is then ground into the flour in order that it can be combined and baked in order that the bread is there. It's the same thing with the grapes. Many, many grapes crushed so that the juice comes out and then fermented. Yes, by our taking up the cross, that's the way, in a sense, that we are milled, That's the way in the sense that we are fermented. By baptism, we have put on Christ, and that fermentation transforms us in order to be the body of Christ. And so the very fact of how we make the bread and the wine is indicative of who we are as God's holy people. All of us joining together, all of us willing to be here to offer ourselves to be one sacrifice to the Father. And if then we come to present ourselves to Christ, then he is the one who transforms us as well. Yes, we will be transformed as we come in the second procession for communion. We believe that consuming the body and blood of Christ helps us to be transformed more and more into the image of Christ. And then we go forth, and we are the body of Christ to the world.